be serving as your director of ceremonies this afternoon, and that is a huge privilege and honor for me. Now, on behalf of the organizers, and that is National Population Council, UNFPA, and the Netherlands Embassy in Uganda, I wish to once again convey our deep sense of appreciation to each one of you for honoring our invitation. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be joined by our guest of honor shortly, but before that, we are going to start, and I believe each one of us has a copy of the program. Now we have a few changes. We will do the anthems when the guest of honor gets here. For now, we are going to have a prayer, and then after the prayer, we will do the welcome remarks and move on to the presentation, and thereafter, we will have an open discussion. The reason we're doing this is to allow enough time for the discussion. Otherwise, I want to recognize the presence of Mr. Daniel Alemu, the officer in charge of UNFPA Uganda. You're most welcome, sir. I would also like to recognize the presence of Bishop Joseph Serwada, the leader of the Born Again Federation of Uganda. You're most welcome, Bishop. Permit me to recognize the presence of Mr. Joseph Enyimu, a board member of the National Population Council. You're most welcome, sir. And then I know there are very many people to recognize. We cannot mention each and everyone, but before I end the recognitions, I want to mention our very good friend of the population program, Mr. Mondo Chateka, a commissioner from Ministry of Gender, Labor, and Social Development. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a number of our development partners. I'm going to kindly ask them to rise up and wave to the audience. Yes, the development partners. And then our friends from the civil society. You're most welcome. The academia. Our friends from Makerere, Chambogo, kindly, thank you so much. And then we have people from government ministries, departments, and agencies. Where are we? Okay, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. At this moment, permit me to invite Dr. Joseph Serwada to lead us in a word of prayer.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. May I request that we all stand to pray. Dear God, Scripture says, blessed is a nation whose God is the Lord God. We thank you for bringing us together today. Thank you for the issues that will be articulated here this afternoon. We want to specifically thank you for those people that will lead us into knowing and understanding where we are as a nation in terms of our population and the expectations of each one of us, so that we can build a nation under your care. Will you bless us? Will you speak to us? Will you give wisdom, knowledge, and understanding? Will you bring each one of us to speed so that together we can build a nation that glorifies your name? Amen.
Thank you so much, Bishop Joseph Serwada. Can we give him a much bigger round of applause? Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. As I said, we are here to launch the State of Uganda Population Report, and I want to mention the theme, which is Accelerate Demographic Transition, Refocus Investments to attain a favorable population age structure for sustainable development. We could not have any better theme at this moment in time when our country seeks to fast-track efforts to harness the demographic dividend. And I believe that will be highlighted in the keynote presentation. Otherwise, ladies and gentlemen, at this moment, permit me to invite Dr. Jotham Musinguzi, the Director General of National Population Council, to come and officially welcome us to this launch. Can we give him a hand?
Thank you very much, the Director of Programs, Mr. Charles Musana. Welcome, Honorable Minister. The Honorable Minister of State for Finance, Planning, and Economic Development, responsible for planning, Honorable Amos Rugorobi, who has just joined us. Most welcome, sir. Honorable members of Parliament, Your Excellencies, the ambassadors and high commissioners, the representative of the National Population Council chairperson, Mr. Joseph Enyimu, seated on that side, and members of council, the UNFPA deputy representative, seated with the minister here, Mr. Daniel Olemo, senior government officials, and I see a number of you, our keynote speaker this afternoon, religious leaders and cultural leaders, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Let me take the opportunity to welcome all of you. Honorable Minister, thank you for joining us at the launch of the 2022 State of Uganda's Population Report, whose theme the Director of Programs has already informed you about. I am happy to see a convergence of all our stakeholders, not only from civil society organizations, but also from government, MDAs, the academia, and development partners as well. The development of the 2002 State of Uganda's Population Report, so-called SUPRE, as we like to call it, is a result of a series of stakeholder consultative meetings under the leadership of the Council. The Council recognizes the importance of making sure that there are inputs from various stakeholders who also committed their valuable time and ideas to make sure that we have a very robust edition of this year's SUPRE. The Council is particularly grateful to Government of Uganda and the United Nations Population Fund, UNFPA, for the financial support that enabled the development and production of this particular report. I just want to remind you that since 2001, the National Population Council has, with support from United Nations Population Fund, has regularly produced the edition of the SUPRE, and we have never failed even once, so this is a very good track record. The SUPRE report is an opportunity that provides the country with a wealth of information that is important for research, for use for advocacy, for programs, as well as making sure that we can do the necessary resource mobilization to support the country's population program. The SUPRE also stimulates debate on several important and topical issues in the population field, as you will be able to see today, thereby enabling better understanding and appreciation of population issues and the ramifications on national development among the population. I wish to commit the Council to continue doing this work in future, working with all of you stakeholders to make sure that this important work continues. And I want to really thank you for having taken the time to make sure you are here for this function. With that, I want to really thank you for the time and hand over back to the Director for Programs. Thank you very much.
Council for those welcome remarks. Can we clap for him again? Ladies and gentlemen, I wish to join the Director General to welcome our line minister, the Minister of State for Finance, Planning and Economic Development, Honorable Amos Lugorobi. You're most welcome, Honorable. Honorable, we are going to move on to the keynote presentation, and thereafter we'll have a discussion. We will have the national anthem and the East African anthem after the arrival of our guest of honor. And our guest of honor this afternoon is going to be the Right Honorable Justin Kasule Lumumba, the Minister in charge of general duties in the office of the Prime Minister, who is coming to represent the Right Honorable Prime Minister, Robina Nabanja. So ladies and gentlemen, permit me to invite our moderator for the next session, and that is Ms. Tuhaise Mildred. Can we clap for her?
Thank you very much, Mr. Charles Musana. All protocol observed, allow me to say good afternoon to all of you. Good afternoon. Oh, that's much better. We're just out of lunch, so probably we have a little bit more energy oozing out of us, right? I want to welcome you all, the development partners, the line minister. It's always great to have the line ministers actually paying attention to what is happening in the ministries, because for me, population is not just about the numbers. It is not just about 1, 2, 3, 10 million, 43 million, 20 million, whichever it is, but it goes down to the quality of the population. If you're talking about economic development, if you're talking about government programs and how they're going to be implemented, you definitely need the statistics, like the Director General did mention, but the quality in the statistics, what I would love to call data mining. So how deeper do we go out of the data that we have? How many males, how many females? That's just the abstract. But when you go deeper, What's the quality of the females that you have? At what age are they giving birth? How many of them are staying in school? What reasons are making them drop out of schools? That data mining is what is implicit of what government will be able to use to plan for the country at the end of the day. And I am pretty excited to listen to our keynote address. Well, I said when you say keynote address, then it gives goosebumps. It feels like some very huge thing. Definitely it is huge, understanding what this particular population report, the State of Uganda population report is. Yes, we have the population every day. We have birthdays, baby showers. The women understand this better. But what does it mean at the end of the day for the development agenda of the country? So ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, allow me invite a presentation from our keynote speaker this afternoon, Mr. John Sekamate Sebuliba, who is a population development consultant at the National Population Council and the National Planning Authority. Let's give him a round of applause and welcome him. And thereafter, we will be able, as you listen attentively, we'll be able to do a discussion, a bit of a critique, not criticism, but critique of the presentation that is coming through, what has been captured, and what more needs to be addressed. Mr. Sekamate, over to you.
Thank you very much, moderator, for that kind introduction. Let me also take this opportunity to welcome you here and say good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, Honorable Minister, and all distinguished guests, protocol observed. As you've heard from the previous speakers, we are here to launch this State of the Uganda Population Report, and it is like a monitoring report on the National Population Program. Where are we on this program? Are we happy with what we have? If not, why are we not happy? What needs to be done? What needs to be changed? As you've heard from the moderator, well, I half-jokingly said I don't want it to be called a keynote address because I'm just giving highlights of what is in this report and giving it context in order to stimulate debate. Because, of course, if we don't stimulate debate, then people will just take it, put it on their shelves, and wait for another one. But if we debate these results, then probably next year, the one next year will be presenting even better results. So, where are we coming from in terms of the National Population Program? We are anchored in Uganda Vision 2040. And I hope everybody knows Uganda's vision, which is a transformed Ugandan society from a peasant to a modern and prosperous country within 30 years. That's why we call it 2040, because it was conceived in 2010. And in this, we are talking about a GDP per capita of $9,500 US. Now, one of the interesting things about this vision is that it recognized Uganda's population growth, the rapid population growth, and the youthful age structure as one of the threats to achieving socioeconomic development. But at the same time, it also pronounced harnessing the demographic dividend as one of the strategies of benefiting from the country's abundant young age population. Now, what this means is that we can turn this population into an asset. We can turn it into a development force. In fact, I liked it when the moderator said that she's not interested in the numbers, but she's interested in what these numbers mean in terms of quality. So you will not hear me saying mentioning numbers like 10 million, 30 million, and so on, so that we don't upset our moderator. Now, what is this demographic dividend? Some of you, of course, we already know what it is, but just to make sure that we are all on the same page, let's have this as a working definition. The demographic dividend is that accelerated economic growth that can occur as the population age structure of a country changes drastically due to reductions in fertility and mortality, coupled with strategic investments in health, in education, in economic policy, and in governance. As you can see from this definition, it is heavily biased towards people, the population. So what it means is that if we invest in these people, especially the young people, and I'm glad to see that the audience is overwhelmingly made up of young people, then that, although the population has been growing very fast over the past few decades, that population, which now is a large base, will be turned around and it becomes an asset, a development asset, rather than a burden. And this is the traditional, some of you may have seen this before, the traditional conceptual framework of the demographic dividend investment pillars. So on the left-hand side, you have the demographic transition, which simply means reduction of fertility and mortality. And one of the tools or techniques of achieving this is, and of course many more, is family planning. If couples can freely determine the number of children that they should have, that they can support, so that they have functional families. And then we, as a country, if we can invest in education of their children, in the health of the population, in governance and accountability, so that when we have public funds, they go out to do what they are meant to do and achieve the results they are planned for. And then we have proper economic policies which will create jobs. And that way we shall achieve the demographic dividend. So when we talk about the age structure, as you saw from the theme, this is what we mean. Now, we call these population pyramids, mostly because of the shape of, especially the one on the right, another on the left. The one on the left is the current population of Uganda. That's its structure. Now, these bars represent the share of the age groups from 0 to 4 up to the oldest, which is 80 plus. And you can see that the base of this population is very large, is very big. So those maroon bars are all what in demography we call children, 0 to 14 years. I know the lawyers will say 0 to 18, and I don't want to dispute that. But in demography, we say 0 to 14 because 0 to 14, those are human beings who can, oh boy, I even hesitate to say it, but who cannot participate in some of the demographic functions like fertility, like giving birth. But I don't want to press that point. I know where it can lead to. But for now, I will ask you to take it at that. So we term them children. Now, when in the population shape, you see that the children have the biggest share of this population. What does it mean? This is what we call the dependency burden. Because the working population, which is in the middle, between 15 to 64, that is the nominally defined as the working population, that population has to support all of these dependents who are not working. So we say a Ugandan worker has a very high dependency burden because he or she has to support number of dependents, non-working people. Now, the pyramid on the left-hand side has a narrow base, and this is the desired population structure. So, we are, according to the Uganda vision, we are moving from the pyramid on the left towards the pyramid on the right, where you have a preponderance, a bigger share of the working age population supporting much smaller pool of dependents. So we are not saying that we should not have children, but we want to empower couples to have only that number of children that they desire and they are able to support comfortably. So that's where we are coming from. Where are we? And are we on track? Now, this is, as I said, it's a monitoring report on the population program. I'm not conducting an actual evaluation, just giving highlights of what, the flavor in the population, in the SUPRE. Now, if we look at some of these key, mostly demographic, but some social indicators also. If we look at some socioeconomic, if we look at the GDP per capita, remember we are shooting for, I don't know whether you remember, we are shooting for a GDP per capita of $9,500 US. And where are we now? Well, it's about 2020, but 2022 you will find that it may not be very different. Even if we said $1,000 US dollars. We moved from that around 500 to about, let's say, about 900. Are we happy with that? You may be. I'm not so happy. Total fertility rate, that is the rate, the number of children that a woman has in Uganda, the number of children she will have in her life, in her lifetime. We moved from 7.4 around 1989 to around 5.4, about 5 children in 2020. Under 5 mortality from that much to about 64. Contraceptive prevalence rate from 3% to about 35%. Net secondary school enrollment from about 10% to 24%. Are we happy? Then gross tertiary enrollment, you can see how we are doing. Now, you can see that things are moving, but they are not moving as fast as we would want. And why is this? And again, just briefly, I'm drawing up some highlights from the report. These are some of the features that are pointed out, impediments standing in the way between us and our vision. Teenage pregnancy. Oh, sorry. The title disappeared. This is a fertility trend. No, it didn't disappear. This is fertility trends. TFR. We started from 7.4, and over the years, you see how it is coming. It is declining all right, but probably not fast enough. One of the biggest problems here, one of the biggest impediments is teenage pregnancy. Teenage pregnancy is one of the biggest supports for the high total fertility. And these teenage pregnancies, I think I would be 90% confident to say that these pregnancies are, well, first of all, 100% they are unplanned, and about 90% unwanted. So this started from 31%, 31% of teenagers, our teenagers, would be pregnant before age 18, to today, about 25%. Well, this is 2016, but we've done, as the DG said, data mining, and we found that even today the situation is not very different. So what is worrying here is that, okay, from 2000, it declined, but then it stagnated. Now, why has it stagnated? You know, those are some of the questions we are putting and we need to answer. The report points it out, but we are inviting partners from Makerere, from academia, from civil society, to help us find out why this stagnation has taken place. And then if we know why it has stagnated, then we can find ways of moving it forward. Now, the reason why that is so important is we go back to our main goal, harnessing the demographic dividend. This dividend will not be automatic. Okay? We need some prerequisites. One of them is a rapid fertility decline. The fertility has to decline rapidly. The graph I've shown, definitely the fertility is coming down. But it is coming down at a very slow pace. And if it continues with that slow pace, then you can be sure Uganda will miss the demographic dividend. Why? Because research has shown, from lessons from the Asian tigers, I hope you know these Asian tigers of of the Far East, countries like Korea, South Korea, countries like Malaysia, Singapore, and so on, that the window of opportunity is only about 30 to 60, 70 years, within which this turnaround in the age structure will perform economic miracles. If we miss that window of opportunity, fertility will go down, all right, but you will not have that splash of economic performance. Then you also need definite infant and child mortality decline. We need massive investment in education and concerted investment in the human resource to turn it into human capital. And I'm saying this so that you can think back to the slide I've just shared with you, how we are doing in secondary education, how we are doing in tertiary enrollment, and you ask yourself whether we are actually turning human resource into human capital. And I put this note because sometimes when we debate this or when we front this, people think that we are after population control. We are not after population control. As to again re-echo the words of the moderator, we are talking about the quality of the population. Uganda already has a large population base, over 40 million people today. And if you project forward using what we call the conservative assumption, that is of the lowest growth rate in the options of growth models, it will give you a population of about 70 million in 2040. And will, of course, keep growing. What we are after is this youth bulge. Because if you have the rapid decline in fertility, then because the base, which I showed in the pyramid, it will shrink suddenly, then you will have this youth bulge going up in the population age structure. And it is that bulge, when they reach the working age population, that is the one which will perform the economic miracle. Why? Because they will not only splash into the working age population, but compared to the ones following behind, there will be much smaller additions. So this large cohort of youth will be supporting a much smaller cohort of children. Okay? So that it is that reversed age, reversed dependency burden that will create the demographic dividend. Hence, the theme that we have today, accelerate demographic transition. What it recognizes is that, in fact, as you've seen, what I've showed so far, all indicators are moving in the right direction. But if the pace at which they are moving does not give anyone any satisfaction. The fertility is progressing very slowly. Mortality is, the decline is progressing very slowly. The mortality decline is progressing slowly. The enrollment in school is even worse. Enrollment in tertiary institutions is probably the worst. So, although we are facing in the right direction, and we are probably on track that we shall get there at one time, the pace at which we are moving gives us concern, gives us pause. And so, what is the rationale here for the DD, the demographic dividend? Turning this bad young population, which we have and which we are continuing to have, into a development force, we want to have three, what we call big results. The first big result will be that changed age structure, the shape of the population pyramid. We want, in 2040, to have a population pyramid that will have a narrow base. How will it come about? If we can drastically reduce the fertility and the mortality. The second big result that we are shooting for, which again is called an urban character, where all of these will just be a way of life. Now, if we can achieve that, according to the SUPRE report, then we shall be on the way to achieving the demographic dividend. Thank you very much.
I think Mr. John Sekamate requires a bigger round of applause than that. And Mr. Sekamate, if you don't mind, I am going to request you to come and take either of these chairs here of your own choice, so that when we are starting up with the conversation, we are directly looking at you. We're going to open up our conversation right now as Dr. Sekamate does get to join us. I know that he has tired up a bit of anxiety, and we're asking quite a number of questions, and we're pondering about a number of things that he did talk about. And while I say this, I will only allow that we will take on the questions when Dr. Sekamate is here. So, a number of issues that have come through, and I'm going to request that we will have 2 microphones or 3. I will ask the Phenon team to just get us 2 microphones that we take on contraception, which type of contraception it is, what are the myths and perceptions surrounding contraceptive use. You understand? All these are conversations that come through, even amidst the elite, even amidst the people we consider as educated and they have a bit of information. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm bouncing this back to us now. After listening to a bit of the insights that are coming in from Dr. Sekamate, what do you think? Some of those could be questions, some of them could be supplements to what has already been said. There is a microphone, or there are microphones around, so you just raise your hand and feel free to introduce yourself and then ask the question or throw a supplement that is coming through. Honorable is already here, so we'll start off with him, and there is another hand right after him.
Thank you very much, Population Council and your stakeholders, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Dr. Byakton Abdu. I earn a living in consultants and research. I'm also a member of parliament representing workers. I think one remark is observation is that I would request that going forward, I think next time doesn't do any harm to start with expectations as we gather here, so that can actually inform a basis for further research and coming up with a tangible report. Otherwise, I want to thank you for the good work. Secondly, the number of theories and schools of thought. The question that lingers is normally, what are the key consequences of population growth? You'll find that I think one school of thought says the bigger the population, the better, because we shall have market. Another, and the smaller the population is, the better, because we shall save on resources. So which is which going forward? Then the other issue is how can you utilize the SUPRE to ensure that we enhance investment? We curb the high level of unemployment so that at least we can move as a country. And then further, you find that I think it has become either a common norm in the African countries. Our current debt budget burden is bigger, I think is growing, skyrocketing more than actually the GDP. Recently, we had an interaction in Ghana. They told us their foreign debt burden is 104 to the GDP ratio. I don't know what the Ugandan is. How would we really use these figures to ensure that at least we reduce on this, so that maybe we can also be zero burden in terms of data on the GDP. Then the other, how do we build synergies? Because there is Population Council, Bureau of Statistics, National Planning Authority, and others. These are very key. How do we build synergies so that at least the information can be utilized? And I would actually love to see that maybe part of the presentation actually comes from Bureau of Statistics, National Planning Authority, so that we can actually have one house and use the information profitably. I thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much, Honorable. We'll pass on the microphone to the next person.
Thank you, moderator, distinguished participants. I'm happy to have the opportunity to speak. Patrick Kagurusi are my names. I'm the country director for AMREF. And I have just a few comments. One, I think we need to, and I hope this report will have the realities that we are seeing now. While the highlights show that the teenage pregnancy rate could be somewhere at about 25, I think we are doing worse than that. Uganda is host, I think, to the youngest grandmother in the world. Recently, there was a media story of a family of a gentleman who has more than 100 children, and there will be several more. The COVID pandemic did not leave us well. The teenage pregnancy skyrocketed. So I'd like such a report to recognize the actual realities that we are facing. The second point I'd like to make, I know the keynote speaker gave key highlights, but I think there are two big disablers to our development and achieving the demographic dividend. One is the massive corruption and wastage of resources that we try to get in this country, and they just go to waste out of corruption and many other irresponsible expenditures. But the second that I would like to bring on are really these gender-based disablers. We work in a program where we recently found out that it's the norm for parents to send out their young girls in the evenings, telling them, we have nothing to eat, so you go and get something to eat for this family. And it's a very big problem. That is for the girls. The young boys do not want to continue school because also they have to look for money to fend for their families by going on these low construction projects and so on. So how can we have such situations, accommodate them or be blind to them, and then say we want to get a quality population? I thank you for listening.
All right. Thank you so much. We'll pass on the microphone to the lady. But before that, we intend to have, and also I request to have the Deputy UNFPA representative also joining this podium right here. So just in case there are questions coming through, but also to get some insights from you after we hear what the questions are and also what the comments are from the audience. So at your opportune time, please feel free. Humbly, I request that you come and join Dr. Sekamate here. Let's continue.
Thank you, moderator, and thank you, doctor. I'm Jackie Katana, Executive Chairperson, Faith for Family Health Initiative. It's an interfaith NGO with a mandate to promote family health and well-being. And I recognize the champions in the house, Apostle, Reverend Nathan, and others. And also I've seen our champion in Parliament, Honorable Kabahenda, who has a political caucus working with the faith sector, particularly to continue to advance the mandate of population. I appreciate National Population Council. We've worked with them in several districts through the faith project, and we've used the mandate of harnessing demographic dividend. And that helped us to change the narrative that the religious and cultural leaders had. Because when it came to family planning, they thought it was stop giving birth, give birth to one child like China. And in the district where we've worked, working with National Population Council, the narrative has changed. And we've seen those indicators improve. So my call here is how can National Population Council and other partners scale up that discussion beyond even districts in a simplified language that doctor used. Because actually we normally take such and take them to the religious leaders, take them cultural leaders for local action. Because local action does not take place in boardrooms. Local action, behavior change, addressing myth and misconceptions is not in boardrooms, it's in communities. And we need to use those local structures. But we need this kind of language. We don't need the language that is very scientific, the language that is very intimidating and is not consistent with the cultural, religious values and principles. So we need each one of you. We've worked in a few districts and it has worked. We need this again to go back as we continue to advance the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jackie. I think you speak to the real core that sometimes those people say, and yet they are the kind of people that we are planning for or planning with together, but also the people that need to pass on the message. So dissemination, Director General, I think is a very key aspect and how and which people we are looking at. Let's pass on to the microphone to Adikemi right there.
Thank you very much, Professor, for your presentation. It was very revealing and quite informative. Now, throughout your presentation, my name is Kemi Ndieli, and I'm the Deputy Country Representative for UN Women. So throughout your presentation, I was there looking for ways in which this research was actually integrating the rights of women. We know that UNFPA does stand for the rights of women and girls, but I wanted to see more concrete and practical ways in which that was being done. And one very key way is about looking at the unpaid care work of women in the economy. We know that not all work is worth the economy. So how do we ensure that this kind of research actually looks at the unpaid care work, looks at the dividend when it comes to women and children and the imbalances that exist within the economy when it comes to unpaid care work, because the work of women as domestic workers is usually not recognized and does not get counted in the economy. So how do we bring that into the center of the economy and ensure that this can be accounted for in the demographic dividend? Or perhaps you did it and you didn't mention it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. I think that's a very key aspect, but it also loops back into what Honorable also said earlier, the synergy is right there, because I think there's been a launch of an outlook and feel of what our labor force is, and I think there was a bit of capturing of unpaid care work, but it wasn't as explicit as I think Adikemi is actually asking, and I think Mr. Sekamate will be responding. We will have about 3 more. first have a round of responses, and then we can get back to those. So any more questions or supplements that are coming through? Okay, there is a hand at this extreme.
Apangu Lichawa Gillian, a student of Makerere University, year 2, Bachelor's of Environmental Health Sciences. And yesterday's lecture, we had a discussion about the fertility rate, and there is a father of 102 children with 12 wives, and he was asking for government help for looking after those kids. And if you look at that, mostly when we are controlling the fertility rate, we look at the women, and yet you could solve the problem of those 12 women by having a vasectomy for that one man. And if you look at the contraceptives that are being brought up, they are concentrating on the women, yet Uganda is a polygamous country at large, if at all you look at it in the African culture. So maybe we should look at that also in controlling the population growth.
Thank you very much, Lillian. I think the men are clapping, so actually they are in agreement that we shouldn't look at population discussions with the view of, if you look at 10 contraceptives, you're clear that 8 of them are targeting women, right? Okay, I don't know if the men will be taking vasectomy even after 15 kids. No, many of them will say, I will stay the way I am. We have a hand right there. Let's get that one.
Thank you so much. My name is Judith Adokrach. I work at the Netherlands Embassy. I want to build on what Patrick said on the issues of governance and accountability. The pillars are very well highlighted, and we do acknowledge that it's hard to pull through if we don't tackle the issues in all the pillars. So we need to have that, holistic conversations around the barriers or the potential hiccups towards the demographic dividend. And I'm just looking at it really from a monitoring and evaluation perspective. We've seen the presentations today gives us insights on, the country's performance, on indicators in health, education, and family planning. But I think in the interest of strategic and holistic thinking, as partners, we would also be interested to have a broader picture that brings performance on all the other pillars that are critical for the DD. So we don't know, but I think it's something we would put forward for future considerations, not within the context of this report, but I think an extra information consolidated is very helpful. Secondly, when we looked at the country's performance on the different indicators, under health, there is quite very good progress. But when you look at the net secondary school enrollment, if we see the leap compared to how the other indicators have formed, those falling in the health sector, we see that this had an increase of maybe 10% in the last years in coverage, while the indicators in the health sector had quite some big leaps. So I think this also brings to critical reflections that something is also within the education sector, because we might find leaps in health, but if we don't find leaps in education, then we are still not moving. And then lastly, then I'll sit, is on the theme is refocus investments to attain a favorable population age. And I think in the interest of partners, it would also be nice to really have that analysis of really what are the current investments, where are the gaps, and what are the needed investments. So it's easy to appreciate where we stand in terms of the financing or the prioritization of our finances into these important pillars. Because when we look at the budgets that go into important sectors, now let me talk of the human capital development. If we really don't think through these critical programs and deliberately prioritize on them, then it's a worrisome situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Judith. Let's get one right there.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mildred. My name is Patrick Edet. I'm the executive director of Uganda National Cancer Awareness Organization. Now, Mildred, let's be clear in this meeting. The problem of Africa, as they have always said, it is poverty, ignorance, and what? And disease. Now, it is good that the minister in charge of the SDGs is supposed to be the guest of honor here.
Yes.
I believe he's coming and she's on the way coming.
Yes.
Let me hope so. Because I attended that SDG conference
The launch
at Serena
of the
last time,
SDGs,
and you were there. You bear with me, witness. I was with you there. Now, the SDGs, the 3 let me quote only the 3, the first ones. We're talking about zero tolerance to hunger, education, and health. Now, as a country, let me talk about these 3 first. Let me have the Minister of Health represented there in the panel. Let me hope the Minister of Education is represented there in the panel. Because when you talk about education system, to change our education system from what is happening today, we are producing people who are looking for what? Jobs. But we're not producing people who are what? Producing what? Jobs, or creating jobs. We start this, we jump to this, we come back to Kiswahili, we leave that first, then we go back to this. I mean, even the children now are confused in the country as far as our education system is concerned. So please, until we first understand where we are in terms of these 3, hunger, zero tolerance to hunger, education system which we are having, if we are going to continue with what we are having, or what strategy do we have, and then the health system. I work for cancer patients. If you look at the statistics, how many families of those who have lost their patients to cancer, families that are headed by children, I mean, let us not just come here and then, discuss issues and then go. Yesterday we were there for environment. What are we? Look at the environment, launching the strategy to calm down the pollution and ABCD. So we just come simply to talk, to dine, and then we go back, and then we come back next year again. I mean, okay, thank you so much. I don't have time.
Thank you very much. You have actually the time to be able to discuss this. Yes, lady, you have a question before? All right, I think I want us to first have, let's have one coming in, and then we will first of all get back to this side here, if there is any response to some of those coming through. The minister actually has some responses, and doctor, there are a few questions that have come to you directly. Can I have a microphone in the front? Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Reverend Nathan Mugalu, I am one of you here. This report has very insightful discussions and realities, but the people that are causing you most of these challenges, we are deep in the villages. We are in the slums in Kampala that you people call
ghetto.
How do you call them?
Ghetto.
Ghetto or informal settlements. I'm informed that's the social work language, informal settlements to mean slums. We, the people that are causing some of these challenges, we are now busy. It is now coming to 4. We are busy taking water, pork, wherever we are. We don't even need to know. Our slogan is baby after baby after baby after baby. Yes. Now, at least some of us here are liberated, but majority of our guys are there. My question is, we have got this report and we have had a number of meetings. How do we localize and contextualize this discussion? Now, me, that is causing me sleepless nights. How do we take this message to us? How do you bring this message to us who are causing these challenges? Because for us, we are there. We are there marrying 10 women, marrying off younger girls, impregnating young girls, doing gender-based violence. We don't need to know things of reproductive health, no contraceptives, no family planning, no nothing. For us, we live for God and, anything. So how do we localize and contextualize? And the report is good. But now the people that are causing us problems are speaking Luganda, Runyankole, Runyoro, and whatever. How do we take this to those people and cause holistic transformation on the ground? That's my worry.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Reverend. And I think your worries should be allayed. Your fears should be allayed pretty soon. Let's first of all get back to this bench here at the front. And I want to officially start off with Dr. yourself. What you think about some of the questions that have been asked, feel free to use the microphone. You could use that or this, but most likely that would be a better option. Or actually, if you don't mind and you would like to use the podium, that podium there, whichever you feel free with.
Thank you very much, moderator. I would also like to thank the audience, for this lively participation and for these, very good questions and comments. As moderator, as you said very rightly, many of some of them are actually not mine, and I'm very glad that you called to the podium, and so that I'm not alone on the firing line. Now, the Honorable Yakatonda, raised some interesting issue about the debate on population. The bigger population, bigger market, smaller population, less cost, and so on. Now, this is the situation we were in. Now, you'll make me feel old, because I'm going to say before 1994, we used to have that population debate. Is a bigger population better than a smaller population, and so on? But, and of course, the developed countries, the donor countries used to say, developing countries have to control their population before, we give them enough money. And then the developing countries would say development is the best contraceptive. And you could see that those were parallel arguments that they could not meet. But after, in Cairo, 1994, this debate was resolved to say that actually, and I really liked your approach, moderator, when you said not numbers, so that we are not about numbers. We are about the individuals, these people. What do they represent? They have needs, they have aspirations, they have rights. So the talk shifted from family planning to control birth to reproductive health, to protect couples and ensure that they realize their reproductive health, their reproductive needs, their reproductive aspirations. So that is the situation, the environment we are operating in now. So that's why we are saying, and that slide, I made sure I put that note, that when we say reduced fertility, and even a rapid reduction in fertility, does not mean a reduction in population. It does not mean population control. And as my friend there from NPA will tell you, when we projected from the current population going forward, in 2040, we shall have at least 70 million people. So if you are interested in the market, there is your market. If you are interested in security, there is your pool for security, and so on. But what we are saying is, what will be the quality of that 70 million, those 70 million people? If it will be 70 million poor people. However much you are, however ambitious you are, you cannot make a development bash from 70 million poor people. So what we are saying is, let's invest in this population, especially the young people. So that's why I was saying, not the population debate. Then Honorable Biakatonda also asked, how do we utilize this information, the SUPRE information for investment? That is exactly why we are here. And that is why we want to partner with strategic, to link with strategic partners like you, the MPs, like civil society, like MDAs, like development partners. And we are very glad that we have UNFPA here, we have the Dutch Embassy, we have UN Women, and so on. These are strategic partners. And which, in fact, already from what some of them have said, we are already encouraged that we have avenues in which we can work to take this forward. Because here we are just highlighting the issues, and I'm glad Judith, agreed with me that we are looking at this from an M&E angle. So this is what we have found. What do we do going forward? Debt to GDP ratio, I think I will pass that on to Honorable Golovi. So, Dr. Kagurusi, also raised some very important issues. The issue of teenage pregnancy, I agree with you. The situation was worsened by the COVID-19 pandemic. So already some of the figures I've presented here may be obsolete, but even at 25%, it's already bad. Now, if it is worse, that is not cause for jubilation. So it means it is even a grimmer situation than I've presented. So we have to do something about it. And again, he raised the issue of corruption and governance. Probably again, the DG and Honorable Rugolovi will help me out on that. And Judith also raised it. And actually, I liked Judith's suggestion that, okay, these are the soft targets that we can talk about. Health is neutral enough, education is neutral enough, even the economy is neutral enough. Now, if you go into issues of corruption and accountability and governance, well, I would rather that some of my
you push it to the right. Yes.
And then Jackie, I'm really glad that I was vindicated by Jackie. When I was coming in, I was debating with myself. How should I present this? I made a decision that let me be very simple in putting out the message. Now, my fear was that the audience, when I looked at the audience, it looked sophisticated. And I said, now, they will say, now, this guy is pedestrian. But now, I'm glad that, so my decision was, a wise decision, and I'm vindicated by what she said, that we need issues amplified, articulated in this simple and straightforward language. So now the only, what I've had, the sentiments that I've had around the audience, what we need now is just to translate this into different languages. But the messages must come out clearly, this simply, that if we don't do this, this is the danger we are running. And, again, this is the message, which is part of the message that the Deputy Rep, UN Women, has brought out. And, okay, this, I must confess that we have, it can be done, but we have not directly addressed the issue of the contribution of the female workers. But it is a very valid point. And I think DG, again, I think this is something we should take up seriously. Vivian from Makerere, is raising a very, very important point of the issue of polygamy, or polygyny, as the sociologists call it. Now, besides being a gender issue, polygyny is, we could call it a confounding factor. Unfortunately, as you said, most of the family planning methods are female-based. And that's why we are saying that we are empowering couples and individual women. When we say we promote family planning. So if it is couples, if these two are married, however married they are, if they are in a monogamous relationship or a polygamous relationship, I don't want to put value labels on that.
But we want to promote, dialogue, within the couple, so that they discuss the number of children that they want, the number of children that they can support. And if they decide, then the system should support them to make sure that whatever number they decided to have, they should have it. Now, the issue that she's raising, I can only say it goes to irresponsibility. I know men are not, some of the men are not the most responsible that they should have been. I hear anecdotes and reports and so on TV, in the news and so on. So again, that's where, and this is also the Reverend raised this point. We really need to do dissemination to different audiences, to different communities, and so on. Again, I will call upon the DG, to take that up. Then finally, Patrick, the ED, he talked about this hunger, education, and so on. Yeah, I think this. That's the information that we are trying to put out on the table. That these are, and again, I will go back to what Judith said. That this is a conversation that has to be holistic. And what we are saying is that you cannot afford, those wheels which represent the DD pillar investment areas. You cannot afford to put your money or your time only in one. As you can see, there are cogs, which should move together in harmony. So if you invest in only one, then the others will not move, and so nothing will move. So the message really is that we need to invest in all of them, but the question is, who are the partners we can link with in case they have better comparative advantage in some of the pillars than others. So if, for example, NPC can, there are some which they cannot invest in, so who are the other strategic partners that they can link up with, who will invest in the others, so that all these wheels move together to achieve the demographic dividend. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Sekamate. I will now send the questions, as many as they were sent, to the right. Let me start off with the Minister, Honorable Ugolobi, on a bit of the aspects that were raised that you would want to add some beef to.
Thank you so much, moderator. To your colleagues in the audience. I think Mr. Sekamate, who was actually meant to answer these questions, has answered most of them. Now, he did refer the question relating to debt, the debt burden, to me, where we are at the moment. We do use an indicator known as the debt to GDP ratio to assess our level of sustainability in terms of our debt portfolio. At the moment, whereas the debt sustainability level is 50% of GDP, debt to GDP is 50%, we are standing below that figure. I think we are hovering around 48%. So we are not yet stressed in terms of debt. However, we are not very far from it. And that is why, in terms of our debt strategy, we want to make sure that we keep ourselves around there. If we are to go up, we have set our debt to GDP ceiling to about 52% for this financial year, 52%. But that's just a ceiling. We are not yet there. and we are managing the situation. Apparently, when people see us going to Parliament fairly frequently to seek for loan approvals, the thinking is that we are, it's just becoming too much and unsustainable. The reality is, and I think this is a mistake, which has been there in the past, that when we present the budget for approval by Parliament, ordinarily we have been securing the approval of the appropriation of expenditure. We have not been seeking the approval of the income side of the, well, in terms of tax revenue, yes, but in terms of the loans that we are securing from the different lending institutions, we have not been securing those approvals at the same time. So during the implementation of the budget is when we go back to Parliament to present these various requests for loans. And to the people who are looking at us, the interpretation is that we are going for new loans over and above the budget that we presented to Parliament. So going forward, I think we are looking at this to make sure that at the time we present the budget for approval, we also present motions for the approval of the borrowing at the same time so that we do not get misunderstood. So in short, we are within the limits. And why we are tending so close to the 50% mark, we have been investing massively, as you realize. Today, this morning, we are discussing the Charter of Fiscal Responsibility in the context of petroleum revenues. Today, we can state almost confidently that by 2025, we should be able to realize our first oil. And we are looking at the numbers in terms of projections. This investment, if you go by current prices of a barrel of oil, we are likely to realize at least $2.8 billion annually. And that is now going to be the return on that investment. And this is when we need to intensify our conversation on how to utilize this money. Of course, the laws are already in place, indicating the fiscal rules that we need to employ on this matter. How much money is reserved for infrastructure investment. But in that discussion, I think what has not emerged is that as we talk about infrastructure investment, what about these issues, other issues relating to the population, such as the issues of family planning? Family planning, I think, to many people has not been adequately understood. When you talk about family planning, to most people, they think you are referring to contraceptives. But looking at this problem more broadly, I was reflecting the other day on the issue of the school dropout rate that we are experiencing today. When you go at the primary level, P1, you have about 3 million pupils. You go to primary 7, PLE exams. How many people are registered, students are registered to sit for those exams? Until recently, this figure has been about 500,000 children. So where the rest of the 2.5 million children, where are they? They have dropped out. And you only have 500,000 pupils. And I think this is the real cause of the crisis that we are discussing today. Now, you drop out of school at primary level. What happens next, especially to the girl child? It is the early pregnancies that we are now discussing. However, as far as Uganda is concerned, we do have all the relevant laws in place. For example, you don't take your child to school, it's criminal. And the laws are there. The Education Act provides for it. We have, in terms of policy, universal free primary education, universal secondary education. So what are the reasons why these kids are not going to school? And why are the enforcement agencies not enforcing the law? I think we need to take this debate to that level. If we are to deal with these problems of high fertility rates, because 2.5 million children have dropped out of school, the next thing is child pregnancy, early marriages. Those are the problems we are going to experience. So I think the discussion we should have is to focus on some of these issues. The second point I wish to note is that our education system is such that it is very punitive. You know, it's not very attractive to these young people, kids. A child goes to school, in class, a teacher is holding a stick in his hand as it's teaching, test after test, you have to get 4 aggregates. You know, outside that, you have failed. It's very intimidating, really. And I think education, it has to be education with leisure. A child should feel compelled to go to school because by going there, he will be able to play football. You know, she will be able to go for physical education and enjoy herself. And alongside that, classroom work, you know, I think we need to change all these things. And all these things call for closer collaboration. Collaboration, I think, is what has been lacking amongst us, the various implementers of these programs. Because the interventions are coming from different angles. When you talk about family planning, you're actually talking about the entire National Development Plan, all the programs in the National Development Plan. And therefore, we need to be called to action, to act as different stakeholders in these various programs, implementing these programs, to discuss at length how do we deliver family planning related services to the population. I think for now, I should leave it at that. Yes, I think I should also mention this. I just realized also recently that in terms of these unmet needs for reproductive health services, what we are getting now is largely coming from the donors, from the civil society organizations, and that's all. And that's why in Dr. Sekamate's presentation, we are looking at a figure of 34%. We could achieve 70% in terms of supplies that are needed, of course, along with the awareness that is required, if there was deliberate government involvement in this. I'm sorry that I'm just realizing that we have not done enough in this area. And I think this is where collaboration has to be at its best to ensure that as government, we come in to support to deal with this challenge of the unmet need of family planning services and the commodities within our population. I think I should leave it at that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And we are sure that after the realization now, the budgeting strength is going to change entirely towards that same direction. DG, over to you.
Thank you very much. Is this on? Thank you. Is it on? Thank you. And I think the way I look at some of the questions that have come out, I think we need to make one point very clear, and that is that the issues of demographic dividend are fairly recent in Uganda, and so we recognize that we are starting from low base at the moment, And please bear with us that it is just that we are realizing that a lot of things are not done. I think the minister has just realized that government needs to prioritize. The government needs to prioritize family planning more than they have done in the past. You cannot continue leaving it to the donors. And this comes out of the publications that we are seeing, but also looking at the trends. And I think Dr. Sekamate made it very clear. Contraception was 3% 25 years ago. It is 35. Yes, that is a factor of 10 times, tenfold. But is that good enough for the country? The answer is no, it's not, and we should go, and the minister is saying we should be going to 70. So we are realizing that this is work that is in progress, and we should take it from there. The message also, I think, from this debate is that, yes, what is good for that child at the household level, what is good for that woman, whether in terms of making sure looking at the rights as the UN Women is talking about, is also good for the country. What is good at individual level, whether it is use of family planning, or it is vaccination, or it is whatever you think about it, it will also translate into benefits at the national level. And I think that is a very important concept which all of us should be able to embrace and take it from there. So that is also very, very important. And of course, I think UN Women, again, the issue of the gender. We are now, I think Dr. Sakamat talked about demographic dividend, but demographic dividend, if you unpack it, it has a gender dividend, it has a youth dividend, it has a education dividend. I just came from Pattaya in Thailand last week. We had the International Conference on Family Planning, a huge conference. And we listened to people from Southeastern Asia. They are talking about even the fifth dividend. For us, we are just at the beginning. We actually not started even the first one. They are on the fifth. So bear with us that we are doing this, but I think it is very important we should partner together. That is why Reverend Serwad is here, Bishop Serwad is here. That's why my friend Mondo Chateke is here, but also civil society, the partners, UNFPA, and others who have spoken. It is important that we should know that we are in this together if we are going to make a difference. Of course, I have a photograph of the gentleman from Butareja. I think some of you have seen it. Yes. The gentleman from Butareja with the 12 wives and 102 children. And the word is he's crying out for help. Too little, too late. Obviously, but nonetheless, obviously, we should go out and help out. But by the time you have 102 children,
humanity requires,
and you need help from the Minister of Finance, of course, not from the likes of me. But having said that, I think it shows us the challenge. Vivian from Makerere, I didn't agree with you that you can say Uganda is a polygamous country. I think you cannot characterize Uganda as that. Yes, we have degrees of polygamy, but I think that characterization is debatable, and I don't think it is very fair. But nonetheless, we must deal with those issues along the line. So I want to encourage. And of course, the SDGs, the issues of SDGs, that is just the minimum package. We should be able to do better than the SDGs as they are. And I think it is a guideline to tell us how we can compare with other countries, but I think our countries should be doing much better than that as well. And thank you, Judith from Netherlands, for saying we need to refocus our investments. Yes, there are some investments now, but I think as you heard Dr. Sekamate saying, this is an M&E process. Next year, we should be seeing, yes, we talked about these things now. Are we moving? Is the contraceptive prevalence rate still where it was? Are we still planning the way we did? And I think we should hold ourselves accountable on these steps, and I think that should be the spirit. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, DG. Let's get some remarks from the Deputy Rep of UNFPA. That's okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, that's okay.
Can you hear me?
You want? Yes.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much, Mildred, for the opportunity, and many thanks for all the questions and engagement of the audience. I will try to maybe comment on a number of the questions that came up. Probably not be thorough. It will be really in a way to add and complement what has already been said. But I think, let me start with what Dr. Sakamati mentioned. I think the question about do we need a bigger population size, a smaller population size, indeed, has to a large extent, in my view, been settled indeed in '94, when the discussion shifted to rights and choices for all. And I think that has been reaffirmed in the Nairobi summit in 2019, where His Excellency the President of the Republic as well went in person and reaffirmed that commitment. So as we marked last week, November 15th, the 8 billion mark, I think it was a good reminder that actually the conversation has really shifted from numbers to quality. And we've been trying really to emphasize this point throughout the last 2 to 3 weeks. And earlier this week, we were together with the Honorable Minister on the NBS, exactly emphasizing this message. We need really to look at the kind of investments we need to make in order for Uganda to reap its demographic dividend. So I think Dr. Sikamati mentioned, what do we need to invest in education? What investments do we need to make in health? How can we create an educational system that is really more attuned to the labor market? Are we really looking at the future of work and the kind of skills that Uganda will need in 30, 40, 50 years from now? So I think these are all very important questions, and I do think we have an enabling environment, an enabling policy environment. But indeed, the question is, with all the progress that we have seen in terms of access to contraceptives, reduction in mortality rates, reduction in fertility, is it enough? I believe it's not. We can really do more. So I think one of the things that came up as well in the conversation is the issue of teenage pregnancy. And for me, I really look at teenage pregnancy as a pandemic within a pandemic. We cannot really achieve or realize a demographic dividend in Uganda if we're not able really to resolve this immense and tremendous challenge that now the country is facing. We have 1,000 adolescent girls getting pregnant every day. That's unacceptable. That's unacceptable. And we can't really talk about achieving a demographic dividend if we're not really able to address the situation. And of course, part of the answer is ensuring really that we have an enabling policy environment, which we do to a large extent, but we need also to ensure that all the policies that we have here in the country are really youth-centric and youth-responsive. So we need really to examine those policies to ensure that they're really able to respond to the needs of the young people here in Uganda. I think in terms of access to family planning, I think the government of Uganda has really made very firm commitments, including the FP 2030, which is a compact that the government of Uganda has signed up to. And that includes really increasing modern CPR from 30% to 40% from 2015 to 2025. So I think that's really an important milestone. And I do believe, of course, the 34% figure that we have is from the 2016 Demographic and Health Survey. I do want to hope that it has increased since, and hopefully the new Demographic and Health Survey will be able to tell us this. But when it comes to family planning, I think the two dimensions there. First, when it comes to demand creation, are we doing enough to educate our population in terms of the available methods, at the health facilities in their vicinity? Are we in a better position now to empower women to access these family planning methods? And the other dimension, of course, when it comes to the service provision, can we ensure really that there is continuous provision of family planning services? because we do see every now and then that there is stock out levels, but we are, of course, working as well with the Ministry of Health to address those. So while we may see that at the national level or at the central level we have sufficient contraceptives, at times at the subnational level we may find that there is a bit of stock out. Gender dividend. Gender dividend is very important because, in fact, while reaping a demographic dividend is a time-bound process, it takes usually 30 to 50 years. The returns from a gender dividend are immediate usually, because what countries need to do is to ensure that they're able really to take into account the production power of half of the population. So if we have women in the informal sector, an unpaid care work, how do we ensure really that we're able to take them or to include them into the formal sector? So I think indeed that's a very important question. And I think, in fact, some estimates by the African Development Bank indicate that Africa is really losing billions of dollars because it's not able really to reap a gender dividend. So I cannot speak really to the particularities in Uganda, but I think the suggestion to, and I think already the DG has spoken to that, to see how we can possibly include that and incorporate that in future studies is very important. Just two more points and I'll end there. First, on the topic of financing, I think I must really commend the government of Uganda, because what we have seen generally on financing, and I'll take the example of family planning, that there has been really a very steady commitment, a firm commitment from the government to gradually increase financing to family planning. So while, for instance, in 2015, around 80% of contraceptives was funded by development partners, by now it has gone down to 60%, according to our estimates. And I think that's really a very strong indication in terms of the ownership and commitment of the government. As we speak, we are working now with the Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of Health to sign what we call a compact of commitment, where the government is committing to gradually contribute a certain percentage to the procurement of contraceptives from now and going forward on an annual basis. So I think this indeed shows the level of commitment from the government to ensure increased access to family planning. The last point I wanted to mention, I'll end there, is on the role of religious and cultural leaders. I don't think we can achieve any of the goals that we're stating to achieve here in Uganda if religious leaders and cultural leaders do not play a proactive role. I think if a religious leader, in my humble view, cannot, of course, encourage the use of family planning methods and contraceptives, possibly, and that's a formula we used in other countries, perhaps he or she may decide to refrain from preaching against them, just to maybe give people that chance and opportunity to feel more encouraged and empowered to access family planning. If, for example, a religious leader does not interrogate the age of the bride, the circumstances around which the marriage is taking place, that's, of course, also something that should be addressed. So I really do believe that religious leaders and cultural leaders have a very strong role to play, and we are working actually as UNFPA with a number of religious-based institutions as well as cultural institutions to ensure that we're able to eradicate some of the harmful practices that we're seeing, like female genital mutilation and early marriage. Thank you very much.
All right, a round of applause to our panel. I by virtue of my power as the moderator for this session, formulated a panel even when it was not. As you did realize, the minister, our line minister, together with the DG actually went out, and I kindly do request that Deputy Rep, you will join them to receive our chief guest who is on the way. And in the next session, we will be taking on what is going to happen together with our chief guest. And a bigger round of applause to Dr. Sekamate for being as simplistic. That is what communication is supposed to be, that it is as simplistic and easily understandable as it can be. And ladies and gentlemen, I think my part is done. I will have to officially hand back to our event host, Mr. Charles Musana. Over to you again. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen, can we give a bigger round of applause? Now, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, our guest of honor has arrived, and my humble request is that as she walks in, we rise up and then we will sing the national anthem and thereafter the East African anthem. Can we stand up? Ladies and gentlemen, our guest of honor. We can now take our seats. Our guest of honor, the Right Honorable Justin Kasule Lumumba, the Minister in charge of General Duties in the Office of the Prime Minister. I would like to take this opportunity to welcome you to the launch of the 2022 State of Uganda Population Report. We are launching this report under the theme, Accelerate Demographic Transition, Refocus Investments to Attain a Favorable Population Age Structure for Sustainable Development. Right Honorable Guest of Honor, we are happy to be joined by Honorable Amos Lugorobi, the Minister of State for Finance Planning and Economic Development in charge of planning. We are also joined by Mr. Enyimu Joseph, a board member at National Population Council, who is here to represent the chairperson of National Population Council. Right Honorable, we are happy to have Dr. Jotham Musinguzi, the Director General of National Population Council and the Chief Organizer of this function. And then we also have Mr. Daniel Alemu, the officer in charge of UNFPA Uganda. You're most welcome, sir. And then, Right Honorable Minister, next to me is Dr. John Sebuliba Sekamate, a population consultant and the person who presented the keynote address. And then amongst the participants this afternoon, we're lucky to have a number of members of parliament. I am going to give them an opportunity to introduce themselves. So I will ask one of my colleagues to move around the microphones. Can we have the MPs introduce themselves? And that should be brief. You tell us your name and your constituency, because we are running out of time.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Kabahenda Flavia Rwabhoro. I represent the people of Chegegwa district. I chair the Committee on Gender, Labor and Social Development. I'm a family planning champion and a member of the Uganda Parliamentary Forum on Population and Development.
Good evening, everybody. Lokwang Phillips Ilukol, Member of Parliament, Napore West Constituency, Karenga District, Karamoja. I am a representative for Northern Uganda on the forum of Uganda Parliamentary Forum of Food Security and Population Activities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Koluo Joseph Andrew. I am a member of Parliament representing the people of Toroma County, Katakwi District, where the Vice President comes from. And I'm a member of this Forum of Population and Food Security in Parliament. Thank you.
At least I don't come from where the Vice President comes from, but I come from where the former Speaker, the late Olanya, comes from. So he's feeling sweet with the Vice President. On a lighter note, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Lake Sharon Balmoy. I am the woman member of Parliament for Gulo District. I'm also a member on this forum of Population Council. I also sit on the Health Committee of Parliament and Equal Opportunities. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Musa Noah, Member of Parliament, representing people of Koboko North in Koboko District in West Nile. And I am a member of this forum on population and development. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you.
Zama Siraj Brahan is my name. I represent the people of Oringa County in Yumbe District.
Etuka Isaac Joaquino, Member of Parliament, Upper Madi County, West Nile Region, and a member of the Forum of on Food and Population. Thank you.
In front.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Naume Chivaju. I represent the people of Shema North County, and I'm also a member of this population forum in Parliament.
Thank you so much for those kind introductions, and a very warm welcome to all our members of Parliament. I would like to invite you to take up your deserved seats that are reserved in front. Kindly come and take up your seats in front as members of Parliament. Right, Honorable Minister, I would also like to recognize the presence of Dr. Patrick Kagurusi, the Country Director of AMREF Health Africa. We are also happy to have Ms. Kemi Nduli, the Deputy Representative of UN Women. And then amongst us, we have Dr. Carol Sechimpi, the Country Director of Maristops Uganda. And in the interest of time, our guest of honor, I cannot introduce everybody in the room, but we have high-ranking civil servants. We have representatives of our development partners. We have representatives of the civil society. We have the academia and our friends from the media fraternity. Honorable guest of honor, at this moment, permit me to invite Dr. Jotham Musinguzi, the Director General, National Population Council, to come and invite the chairperson, the representative of the chairperson of National Population Council to make his remarks. DG.
Our guest of honor this afternoon, Right Honorable Kasule Lumumba, representing the Right Honorable Prime Minister of the Republic of Uganda, the Honorable Minister of State for Finance, Planning and Economic Development, Honorable Amos Rugorobi, honorable members of Parliament present here, Your Excellencies, the ambassadors and high commissioners, the representative of the chairperson of the National Population Council and members of council present here, the deputy representative of UNFPA, Mr. Daniel Remu, senior civil servants present, religious leaders, cultural leaders, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I have been requested to invite the chairperson of my council, and it is my great pleasure to invite you, Mr. Joseph Enyimu, to come and make your statement. Thank you.
Right Honorable Justin Kasule Lumumba, Minister of General Duties in the Office of the Prime Minister, the Honorable Minister of State for Finance, Planning and Economic Development, Honorable Amos Rugorobi, Honorable Members of Parliament, Your Excellencies, Ambassadors and High Commissioners, the Director General, National Population Council, the UNFPA country representative, religious and cultural leaders here present, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, a very warm good evening to you. I am Joseph Enyimu, a member of the council, and I wish to start by welcoming our guest of honor and all the distinguished guests to the launch of the 2020 State of Uganda Population Report. National Population Council annually produces and disseminates the State of Uganda Population Report. Each edition analyzes developments, population trends, and patterns in Uganda, as well as shedding light on specific programs and regions and the unique challenges they face. The Council uses this evidence to propose policy recommendations for improving the quality of life of the people of Uganda. Our chief guest, the theme for this year's State of the Population Report is accelerating demographic transition, refocusing investments to attain a favorable population age structure for sustainable development. This theme is quite timely and appropriate because accelerating demographic transition is key to Uganda's socio-economic transformation and building a resilient society. I am happy to note from the statistics that Uganda is starting to see a reduction in fertility from over 7 children in the early 1990s to the current 5 children per woman. We await to see further transition from the forthcoming national housing and population census that will soon be conducted. I must therefore emphasize that this reduction in fertility rate is what will trigger the change in the population age structure and contribute to growth in the labor force relative to population growth. With the right investments, this will result in growth in income-generating jobs, increase in savings, and investment in human and physical capital. Right Honorable Minister, the launch of the 22nd edition of the State of Uganda's Population Report comes a few days after the world marked the Day of 8 billion on 15th November 2022. A world of 8 billion presents opportunities we should tap into by investing in our youth and building a globally competitive human resource. Right Honorable, as I said at the beginning, we produced the State of Uganda's Population Report to guide the country on population and development matters. I am delighted to inform you that the report you are launching today explores critical bottlenecks in Uganda's population dynamics with a view to finding ways to expedite the demographic transition towards the desired results. This re-examination is meant to produce the evidence which will guide the strategic repositioning and reallocation of the country's resources towards the vision goal of harnessing the demographic dividend. This report is intended for policymakers, development partners, researchers, and civil servants. I encourage them to read it and implement the policy recommendations for the betterment of our country. I wish to take this opportunity to thank the authors, the editorial committee, and staff who contributed to this year's State of Uganda's Population Report. We at the National Population Council pledge to continue supporting government's development efforts and are confident that together we shall transform Uganda's quality of life of the people of Uganda. I wish to once again take this opportunity to appreciate our guest of honor, the Right Honorable Minister, for gracing this occasion. I wish to thank UNFPA, the Netherlands Embassy, and other development partners for supporting Uganda's population program. I thank you all for your kind attention for God and my country.
Thank you so much, Mr. Joseph Enyimu, for ably representing Professor Fred Wabwire Mangeni, the chairperson of the Board of National Population Council. And we appreciate those insights about this year's State of Uganda Population Report. Right Honorable Minister, at this moment, permit me to invite Mr. Daniel Alemu, the officer in charge of UNFPA Uganda, to come and make his remarks. You're most welcome, sir. Can we give him a hand clap?
Pleasant afternoon. Guest of honor, Right Honorable Justine Lumumba, Minister for General Duties at the Office of the Prime Minister, representing the Right Honorable Prime Minister of Uganda, Minister of State for Finance, Planning and Economic Development, Honorable Amos Lugulobi, Honorable Members of Parliament here present, Excellencies, ambassadors, and representatives of development partners, Chairperson of the National Population Council, represented here by Mr. Joseph, Director General of the National Population Council, Dr. Jotham Musinguzi, representatives of ministries, agencies, and departments, UN agencies here present, ladies and gentlemen, a very pleasant afternoon to all of you. I would like to start by congratulating the National Population Council for their leadership and for upholding and sustaining the production of evidence through this National State of Uganda Population Report. This year's report has been produced under the theme Accelerate Demographic Transition, Refocus Investments to Attain a Favorable Population Age Structure for Sustainable Development. This annual publication, supported this year by the Netherlands Embassy, enables Uganda to synthesize and document evidence required for planning and decision-making on topical population themes. I would like to bring to your attention that this year, on 15th of November 2022, as has already been mentioned by the previous speaker, the global population reached 8 billion. It is important for us to talk about this milestone today to remind ourselves of the challenges, progress, and opportunities that lie ahead. First and foremost, we need to remind ourselves that as the world's population continues to grow, the pace of growth is slowing down. The hard-won progress in health, technology, and development, which we have observed globally and here in Uganda, should be recognized and celebrated. Improvements in maternal and child health mean that a baby born today in Uganda is expected to live on average to at least 63 years. Increased literacy levels to over 72%. Fertility rates have declined from over 7 children in 1988 to about 5.4 in 2016. Modern contraceptive prevalence rate increased from less than 10% in the early 2000s to the current 35%. Financing for family planning was predominantly donor-dependent at over 80%, now reducing to 60% with improvements in domestic financing, among others. Right Honorable Minister, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, rapid population growth is both a cause and consequence of slow progress in development. Sustained high fertility and rapid population growth present challenges to the achievement of sustainable development. The necessity of educating growing numbers of children and young people, for example, draws resources away from efforts to improve the quality of education. We realize that the world is both younger and older, with younger people than ever in human history, and more so in Africa, where the median age stands at 17 years compared to 41 years in Europe. However, this also brings in issues of inequality, diversity, and the need for more youth-centered approaches, as well as investments in demographic intelligence to chart a more sustainable path forward for Africa and Uganda. As the population grows to the next billion, to come probably in the next 15 years, with Africa's population growing and constituting a quarter of the world's population by 2050. This has major implications in terms of planning, decision-making, and investments. We are all aware that the Agenda 2063, as well as Uganda's Vision 2040, prioritize investments in young people to accelerate the demographic transition and eventually the harnessing of the demographic dividend. Since the demographic dividend is not automatic, as has been said already earlier, Uganda as a country needs to do even more to ensure the potential of young people is harnessed. We need to move from words to action. We need to reflect collectively on the following questions. How do we place women's needs, rights, and choices as an immediate priority in all of our development plans and programs? Our climate goals. Women typically are bearing the brunt of climate shocks and climate disaster. How do we build more resilient communities to climate shocks with women and girls at the center? How can we holistically address questions of poverty and inequality and the interlinkages between them? How can we ensure that sexual reproductive health and information is prioritized in national planning and budgeting processes to ensure all Ugandans, especially the young people, receive timely access to life-saving information and services to avert national predicaments like teenage pregnancies? How can we strengthen and augment social policies around childcare to eliminate all forms of violence that lead to sexual exploitation, child abuse, child marriage, and female genital mutilation? And how can we ensure more effective involvement of parents and communities to sensitize them as to the needs of young people? And how can we create more conducive, youth-friendly environments for our children, adolescents, and girls? Right Honorable Minister, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is evident that as 8th billion, we have the power to shape our common futures. By protecting individual rights, we can unleash the unlimited potential of people around the world to a world of infinite possibilities, to address the challenges facing our societies and the global challenges endangering us all. As we know, the goal is not more or fewer people, but more and equal access to opportunities for people, especially women, youth, and girls. We need to shift the focus from numbers to quality and hence be on track to realize the Sustainable Development Goals. I would like to take this opportunity and commend the report being launched today for giving in-depth interrogation of the questions posed above, from family planning to adolescent sexual and reproductive health to urbanization. This unquestionably helps make the case for the urgency of investments in these areas to enable Uganda to reap its demographic dividend. Once again, I thank the National Population Council leadership for ensuring the country continues to have compelling evidence to inform evidence-based policies, programs, and decision-making. I would like also to take the opportunity to thank the Right Honorable Minister here present, representing the Right Honorable Prime Minister, for the active role of the government in ensuring more youth-friendly policies are enacted and implemented. And for the Right Honorable Prime Minister, of course, for her personally leading on the government's efforts to fight teenage pregnancy in the country. Without deliberate and youth-friendly policies, guidelines, and programs that can ensure girls remain in school no matter what, vulnerabilities will continue to increase and the consequences would be dire. As UNFPA, we recommit our full support to promoting an agenda of rights and choices for all, in support of the government's vision to ensure that no young person and girl remains behind. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Daniel, for your strong statement on behalf of UNFPA. Our guest of honor, I'm going to invite the Honorable Minister of State for Finance Planning and Economic Development, who is also the host minister, but also to say that after he has made his statement, is going to invite you to receive an award in recognition of your work as a champion on population issues in your individual capacity. So the Honorable Minister will perform that. And then we will also then after that request you to award to the journalists that have done a commendable job. And then thereafter, the Minister will again invite you to speak to us and then officially launch the 2022 State of Uganda's Population Report. So it's now my pleasure to invite the Honorable Minister of State for Finance, Planning and Economic Development, Honorable Amos Lugorobi, to deliver his speech.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jotham. Our chief guest, Honorable Justin Lumumba Kasule, representing the Right Honorable Prime Minister of Uganda, honorable members of Parliament, Excellencies, ambassadors, the Chairperson, National Population Council, the Director General, National Population Council, the UNFPA country representative, represented by her deputy, the religious and cultural leaders here present, our distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I wish to join the previous speakers in welcoming our guest of honor and all other guests to the 2022 State of Uganda Population Report launch. I'm encouraged that this year's theme, as you already heard, focuses on accelerating demographic transition in order to attain a favorable population age structure for sustainable development. This is in line with the government's development priorities articulated in our National Development Plan and Vision 2040. Guest of honor, ladies and gentlemen, in order to accelerate demographic transition and reap the benefits of the demographic dividend, there must be deliberate efforts to embrace family planning at the family level. And this will translate to a reduction on the dependency burden at family level. At the community and national level, it will reduce the pressure on service delivery and ensure increased investments towards socio-economic development. In view of this year's theme, I wish to make 4 proposals to the country if we are to harness the demographic dividend. First, we must address the high fertility rate in Uganda. This can be done through a deliberate family planning program that emphasizes access, mass sensitization, provision of reproductive health services, and age-appropriate information, in addition to promoting education of the girl child for at least 15 years until completion. We must also ensure that young people get quality education and training. We need to focus on matching education, skills, and the needs of the labor market to make our young people globally competitive. I therefore encourage parents and young people to prioritize technical and vocational education in addition to formal education. Thirdly, we need to emphasize the multi-sectoral approach to take advantage of the support that can be garnered from sectors. I'm happy to note that the report we are launching today takes cognizance of this approach and underscores the need to invest in human capital development. Sustainable urbanization and housing, community mobilization, and mindset change. Last but not least, we need robust social protection systems to help end poverty and fight persistent inequalities. Social protection is a crucial policy tool towards reducing poverty. It safeguards individuals and families in times of crisis and helps improve children's health and education. In addition, access to quality services and universal access to social protection has proven necessary to break the intergenerational cycle of poverty and promoting inclusion. With these 4 recommendations, we'll be able to not only accelerate a demographic transition, but harness the demographic dividend and achieve Vision 2040. I encourage leaders at all levels to support the parish development model and other government social protection programs. I pledge the commitment of the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development towards these important issues. Right Honorable Minister and Chief Guest, I wish to once again take this opportunity to appreciate you for officiating on this momentous occasion. I wish to also thank our development partners for supporting government development initiatives. Lastly, I would like to thank the board, management, and staff of the National Population Council for developing this year's State of Uganda's Population Report and organizing this event. For God and my country, thank you all. The next item, as I've been requested, is to recognize our guest of honor for championing population issues, and you're recognizing her with an award. Wherever I made some omissions, the guest of honor is actually the Prime Minister. I thought that I should emphasize that. Yes, so now, may I now take this honor to recognize our chief guest for championing the population issues with an award. Okay, Madam Diana Kagere, can you come forward to read the media awards, the various media awards? And our guest of honor will preside over that particular function, wherever you are. I think it is okay. You may read them out one by one.
Thank you so much, Right Honorable Minister Justin Lumumba. All protocol observed. And State Minister for Planning and Development. It's my pleasure to present to you the award winners in the 5 different categories for the media awards. That was print, online, television, and a special category of the Journalist of the Year. This goes to an individual journalist who has done outstandingly well over time in presenting or focusing and highlighting issues of population and development in the media. The process for the selection of this journalist was really very thorough, transparent, and very competitive. We are happy that there's been a noticeable increase in the number of entries that are presented every year for these awards, with the exception of the 2 years, the 2-year break that we had because of the pandemic. We are also happy that these entries were really competitive. It took quite a lot of time for us as judges to get through all the entries that we had. And it was really a very competitive process. So for those who have not won, it does not mean that you have not done well. It just means that someone has done something extraordinary, more than the effort that you've put in. And gladly, these awards are always annual, so you can always try every year. So, so every entry was reviewed by the independent journalist, a panel of 4 journalists that were selected from across the different sectors: media, media management, academia, but basing in the communication sector, and social behavioral communication. I don't know if my fellow judges are in the house. Wherever you are, you can stand up for recognition before I read out these names. And the entries were each scored on a scale basing on the key particular issues that we're looking for in terms of covering the population issues. Most importantly, the focus was on how journalists brought attention to the demographic dividend, as the professor has presented to you. So they were all reviewed, and an aggregate score determined who the winner was. So that's how independent the scores were, without undue influence to each of the judges who participated in this process. It's now my honor, Honorable Minister, to present to you the winners in the print category. The second runner-up for print is Ronald Musoke from the Independent magazine.
Ronald Musoke, he wins a plaque and I think Ronald gets a recognition.
Oh, yes. Ronald has been recognized by the Honorable Minister. And the winner in this category, thank you so much, Ronald Musoke. And the winner in the print category is Gerald Tenywa from the New Vision.
Tenywa gets, as a winner, he gets a plaque and 2 million shillings.
Congratulations to Gerald. Right, Honorable, we move on to the online category. This represents newspapers that are broadcast online. And this category, the winner is Diana Talemwa Karakire.
Diana is also recognized with a plaque and 2 million shillings.
Yes. Diana works for Ubuntu Times. Congratulations, Diana. Right Honorable Minister, I present to you the winner for the category of radio, and that is Aloysius Biamukama from Mama FM.
Equally, Mr. Aloysius Biamukama is recognized with a plaque and 2 million shillings for this award.
Congratulations, Aloysius. Right Honorable Minister, it's also my pleasure to present to you the winner for the television category, and that is Catherine Namugera from BBS Telefina.
Catherine Namugerwa from BBS TV is recognized with a plaque and 2 million shillings.
And lastly is the category for the overall winner. This also takes the special category of one of the journalists who is not new to the Population Awards. She has really performed exceptionally well over the years, and she has really put in effort. And also this year, she takes the overall winner award because of the scores that she has gotten, and of course for the exceptional effort that she has put in covering population issues. Right Honorable Minister, allow me to present to you Agnes Shotalengeleire from the New Vision. Agnes, unfortunately, was not able to make it, but she's represented by her son. Thank you so much.
Yes, Agnes, represented by her son, receives a plaque and 3 million shillings.
I would invite all the winners with your plaques for a group photograph with the Right Honorable Minister at this point. All the winners in the different categories, I think, come forward for a group photograph with our dignitaries at the podium. Carry your plaques. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone, and I hand over to Honorable Omos to take us to the next session.
Thank you so much for that session. Colleagues, when you look at the program, the next item is the address by the guest of honor and the launch of the 2022 State of Uganda Population Report. So I want to take this opportunity to invite our guest of honor to give her address and subsequently launch the State of Uganda Population Report 2022.
Thank you so much, Honorable Amos Lugolobi. Honorable Amos Lugolobi, the Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, in charge of planning. Honorable members of Parliament who are here and who are members of Food and Population Caucus or Forum in Parliament, Your Excellencies, the Ambassadors and High Commissioners, the Chairperson and members of the National Population Council, the Director General, National Population Council, the UNFPA country representative, represented by the Deputy, religious and cultural leaders present, people from the academia, and those from the media, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I want to first bring apologies from the Right Honorable Robin Anabanja, the Prime Minister of the Republic of Uganda and leader of government business in the Parliament. She has not been able to make it to this function, but she would have loved. But she had to be in the Parliament today at this time to give accountability to Parliament in terms of resolutions that have been passed by Parliament for the last 1 year and what has been done by the executive. It is a heavy job, but she has to do it. So she delegated me to be here, and I'm also happy to be here as a former member of the Food and Population Forum of Parliament, actually one of those who started it in Parliament. In a special, I want to welcome the members of Parliament. One may think, why have a committee of Parliament, then again have a food and population forum in Parliament? These are the mobilizers in Parliament when it comes to these issues. These are the advocates on issues to do with food and population when it comes to mobilization within Parliament. So these are our leaders. They simplify the work of the Prime Minister on these issues. They simplify the work of the Minister in charge of planning, and also they simplify the work of us when it comes to issues to do with the social issues, let me say that. So I'm here to deliver the message from the Prime Minister, but I want to first thank you for the recognition you have given her, though it was not accompanied with an envelope. Now that the function is on TV, it's live, I would have to explain why there was no envelope. But Honorable Golobi will have to help me. I'm happy to officiate at the launch of the 2022 State of Uganda Population Report. The State of Uganda Population Report is an annual publication by the National Population Council on behalf of government. Each edition analyzes developments and trends in the country's population and demographics and helps to evaluate progress made in improving the quality of life of our people and the challenges that remain to be addressed. The theme of this year, Accelerate Demographic Transition, refocus investment to attain a favorable population age structure for sustainable development. is especially significant as it underscores the importance of accelerating a demographic change to harness the demographic dividend. I'm in agreement with the theme that to attain our development aspirations, we need to take advantage of the benefits that accrue from a change in the population age structure of the country. To change the population age structure, we need to address the issue of high fertility rate. And I'm happy that the minister in charge of planning has also emphasized this. Uganda's fertility rate currently stands at 5.4 children per woman. This is quite high and not only possesses health risks for children and their mothers, but also detracts from human capital development, slow economic growth, and exacerbates economic threats. I, therefore, encourage couples to plan for manageable family sizes in order to avoid the aforementioned challenges. It is also important to note that 78% of Ugandans are young people below the age of 30 years. This presents the country with a huge opportunity, and we must work to increase opportunities for young Ugandans through investments in education, health, skilling, employment opportunities to turn them into a dynamic, productive, and globally competitive task force. I want to urge the media, as you talk about population issues, government has built technical institutes, but the population, the enrollment is still low. Please help us as government to educate the communities the importance of technical education. Because once one qualifies, is easily absorbed in the market and can easily employ others. To fully benefit from the demographic dividend, I call upon all Ugandans to take advantage of the existing government programs to create wealth and improve their livelihoods. Earlier this year, His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni launched the parish development model to integrate the 3.5 million households in the subsistence economy into the money economy. The parish development model is an extension of the government's approach to development as envisaged under the Third National Development Plan, with the parish as the lowest administrative and operation hub for developing services closer to the people and fostering economic development. I therefore encourage Ugandans to take advantage of the parish development model. This is, if we succeed, we'll be able to have brought everybody on board and everybody will live happy. Distinguished guests, as you may recall, when NRM came to power, there were many unfavorable indicators within the population. However, since then, things have turned around and the country's development indicators have improved tremendously. For example, before 1986, there was limited access to health services, low immunization rates, and high malnutrition rates. All these led to increased morbidity and mortality. I'm happy to highlight progress in the following areas. 1, Ugandans are now healthier and living longer. Life expectancy in Uganda has increased by 20 years in one generation, from 43 years in 1991 to 63.3 years in 2016. 2, as a result of increased immunization against killer diseases and other government programs, fewer children are dying. Infant mortality rate has reduced from 122 deaths per 1,000 live births in 1991 to 43 deaths per 1,000 live births in 2016. Following the improvements in health service delivery, the maternal mortality ratio has reduced from 506 deaths per 100,000 live births in 1991 to 336 per 1,000 live births in 2016. For, as the minister noted, the proportion of the population living in poverty has fallen from 56% in 1992 to 20.3% in 2020. 5. In the 2021-2022 financial year, the economy grew to shillings 162.1 trillion. This is equivalent to 45.7 billion US dollars. The economy grew at a rate of 4.6% per annum, up from the 3.5% growth of the 2020-2021 financial year. This shows that the economy is on a path to full recovery from the COVID-19 disruptions. I'm happy that behind these figures are significant improvements in people's livelihoods and the living conditions of millions of households across the country. Uganda has also made considerable progress in improving the status of the girl child. However, despite government's efforts to end discrimination against women and girls, harmful practices such as gender-based violence, early marriages, and teenage pregnancies persist, with adverse consequences for the girls, their communities, and our efforts to fast-track a demographic transition and national development. In some poor households, girls are generally considered an economic asset from which families can gain wealth. The payment of bride price is a key incentive sustaining the practice of child marriages in these communities. It is therefore very important to get households that are still engaged in subsistence into the money economy if we are to succeed in ending child marriages and teenage pregnancies. Let us rise to the challenge. To achieve our development aspirations, we must achieve Vision 2040. To achieve Vision 2040, we must harness the demographic dividend. And to harness the demographic dividend, we must accelerate demographic transition and make strategic investments in health, education, job creation, and governance. With your commitment and the support of all Ugandans, I'm sure this is a goal we can attain. On this occasion, I wish to thank the participants here today and those online and our development partners, especially the United Nations Development Fund and the Netherlands Embassy, for supporting our development efforts. I extend my deep gratitude to the National Population Council for producing the State of Uganda Population Report and organizing this event. I take this opportunity to once again thank you on behalf of the Prime Minister for God and my country.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we are now going to have the official launch of the 2022 State of Uganda Population Report, and the report is going to be launched digitally. So we will count, and I'm going to count from 3. When I get to 1, we will have the report launched by our guest of honor, the Right Honorable Minister. So, ladies and gentlemen, can we count together? 3, 2, 1. We will now have a group photograph with copies of the report. Yes, the report itself. You hold the report. I would also like to invite the members of parliament who are present to join the guest of honor on the stage for a group photograph. Okay, now the members of parliament can join, and members of the NPC council. And of course, Bishop Joseph Serwada. So can we also have members of staff of National Population Council, UNFPA, and the Netherlands Embassy come and join the guest of honor for a group photograph? Thank you so much. We are now going to have the anthems as we come to the end of the program. But before that, copies of the book that has been launched are outside. So as we go for the reception that is coming after the closure of the function, we can pick copies of the book, but also calendars for 2023. Can we now have the East African anthem and thereafter the Uganda anthem? Thank you so much. Kindly join me to appreciate our guest of honor, Right Honorable Justin Kasule Lumumba, for gracing this occasion. And can we remain in the room until we see off our guest of honor? And I would also like to take this opportunity to appreciate each one of you for making time to come and be part of the 2022 launch of the State of Uganda Population Report. Thank you so much. As I said, let's pick copies as we walk out of this room, and then I want to invite you to join us at a reception. Thank you.